You are living in the most dangerous time in American history.
We won't take a single back step.
Former professional basketball player is now the Republican Party's choice.
Can you imagine Royce White, the U.S. Senate?
White won the endorsement on May 18th with 67% of the vote.
There's nothing that guarantees we win, but I guarantee you if we lose, we will die.
If you laugh, you risk appearing to be a fool. If you weep, you risk appearing to be sentimental. If you reach out for another, you risk rejection. If you love, you risk not being loved in return. If you place your dreams in front of the crowd, you risk ridicule. If you go forward in the face of overwhelming odds, you risk failure. But risk must be taken, for the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing has nothing, does nothing is nothing. Well, in the world of ego is nothing. That person may avoid suffering, pain, and embarrassment, but that individual will not learn, love, change, feel, or grow. Only the person who takes risks is truly free.
Welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio, powered by our favorite sponsor, TireGet.com. That's TireGet.com. You all have to buy tires from somebody. When you do buy tires, I'm not saying you have to go buy them right now, but when you do, buy them from us. TireGet.com. Help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I'm your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and this is episode 232. Today is January 1st, year of our Lord, 2025. Happy New Year's to everybody out there. And we're kicking the new year off with a new format, the reaction/news episode once a week on Wednesdays that I've promised is now being, what do we want to call it? Launched today. This is the first episode, and there you saw an incredible speech. I believe he's the father of a boxer, if I'm not mistaken. Man, what very intellectually sound gentleman there. And man, if he didn't have that speech memorized, I'm thoroughly impressed. There are people out there who just have this uncanny ability to articulate profound ideas and thoughts, and we want to try and find those people, and we want to try and integrate some of that stuff into the podcast, especially into this show and into the reaction piece of what we're going to be trying to do going forward in terms of content. So today is the first show. We're going to get into a lot of reaction videos today. I don't know. Did I send you some clips? We got Tanner in here producing, because for this show I can't necessarily, live and hold the camera. But did I send you some more long form clips? I'm not sure if I did. If I didn't, we'll get some of those in there at some point here in the middle section. So the format is going to more times than not be, we're going to do some reaction videos in the beginning. We're going to go to some more longer form news clips, some things that were a little bit bigger in terms of duration for clips and content, and then we're going to end with some reaction videos. And yeah, strap in. I mean, this is going to be one of those episodes that we do weekly now. And as another piece of housekeeping, on Sundays we are putting together all of the necessary tools and setup for me to do a call-in show. So make sure that you stay tuned and updated for that. The call-in show will begin here in the new year, and I believe I'm set to start my daily show with Real America's Voice as well. We're ironing out those details with the network. So we got a lot more content, a lot more Please Call Me Crazy, a lot more Free People Radio, a lot more smash mouth nationalist populism here in Donald Trump's second term coming in 2025. So happy New Year to everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got your resolutions. I hope you're fired up for this new year. We did an incredible thing, grabbing this country back from the jaws of defeat. And here we go. Let's get the next clip rolling, Tanner.
there is an overwhelming universal criticism by proponents of pro-choice and opponents of pro-choice that Roe v. Wade was not a very well-reasoned decision. Most constitutional scholars do not offer that as an example of, whether they're for or against abortion, a decision that is well-written and well-reasoned. Not the conclusion, but it's not offered as a way to write a decision.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court.
Oh, and then that's just Joe Biden there being as dishonest, contradictory as Joe Biden can be. It's almost a house joke now to bring up Joe Biden's name. It will forever go down in infamy as the final president of the mockery that the establishment tried to pull on the American people. But it is still good for us to never forget just how blatant that hypocrisy and contradiction really was. I think Joe Biden is obviously he had a declining cognitive ability towards the end here. But still, you would think that the Democrats are at least competent enough as a political machine to go back and check what Joe Biden had said on the record about such a single issue, an important single issue like Roe v. Wade was, or at least was made out to be in the last couple election cycles, and try and smooth out what he what his position was on it, and they didn't do that. And you would have even thought that they might have double checked that before they chose him to run back when he ran in 2020. So, it's just that one's a sign of Joe Biden saying one thing when he was younger in a much different political climate than he's saying now. And I'm not even saying that people can't switch their position. I'm not saying that people can't change their mind. I'm not saying that people can't evolve in their worldview. In fact, if people don't evolve in their worldview and change their mind at some point, it's probably a sign that they're arrogant, pompous, and they think too much of their own opinions and thoughts. But certainly with the Democrats, especially the establishment Democrats over the last couple election cycles, they've done an incredible job of gaslighting the rest of us into thinking that we're crazy for even pointing out how stark the contrast is for what they believed before and what they seem to believe today. And it's perfectly reasonable to point that out. I think that we should continue to point that out. And over the course of these shows where I do these reaction videos, you're going to see me bring up a lot of things from the past. One of the most important tools that human beings have is history. One of the most important tools is history. We can't forget where we came from. We can't forget what's come before us. We have to keep those things in mind, especially as so many things come in front of us that call history into question. I mean, we just can't avoid the history. So,
Would a second Donald Trump term look like?
You can't imagine the things that he's going to do.
And shoot visitors to the White House. Yeah. That means he can shoot the First Lady.
We're going to see violence, the likes of which we didn't even see on January 6th.
Make it illegal to run against him, to throw his opponents in jail, to shut down the media.
He will make himself into the Fuhrer.
Using martial law against the American people.
Create mass internment camps.
Throw everyone into Gitmo.
Assassinate generals.
Ordering troops to attack American citizens.
Trump's very well-armed and extremist base will try to kill people.
He's going to basically burn the house down.
The absolute destruction of the Justice Department as we know it.
A vote for Donald Trump may mean the last election that you ever get to vote.
Shout out to, I think it's Grabian, right? Shout out to Grabian. I particularly like this clip, this super cut right here because of how many Republicans are in it. And I mean, just the sensationalism, the obnoxious way that some of these neocon rhinos try to paint Donald Trump is comical. I mean, it's just, this he's going to be the next Fuhrer. I mean, it's they have no real sense of sacred honor, no real sense of individual honor. I mean, I couldn't even fix myself to lie like that. What's crazy about it is the alternative that they were the alternative to what they're promoting was a much more, let's say, blatant uh, sort of, I don't want to say fascism because again, I don't want to be extreme, but again, when 76%, I think it was 76%, maybe it was 67% of the Democrats that they polled back during the pandemic said they'd be in favor of locking unvaccinated citizens in their home. That's much more fascist, sort of tyrannical government overreach than anything that Donald Trump has done and anything that I think he will do in his second term. And look, the fight's already broken out about the visa situation. Obviously, the spending bill is an issue. So we are not in lockstep on this side of the aisle or in this movement. We support Donald Trump, and obviously he gave us a foothold to save the republic. But by no means are we sycophant, sort of blind faith fanatics in Donald Trump. We'll bring a reasonable and rightful criticism to Donald Trump and any of his actions or policies as we see fit. But to say he's going to become the next Fuhrer is just ridiculous. And for Liz Cheney, come on, Liz, give me a break. I mean, it's just comical. George Conway. I mean, these people are. Again, I say, be very, very weary of any Republican that they let on primetime mainstream media, because the real hitters, they're very slow to give us a platform on any primetime television. So. Oh, that's a nice touch. Okay. Well, number one, I always take these types of videos with a grain of salt because it's hard to know, it's hard to know how authentic they are. I mean, obviously, you got a couple of soldiers there with some Ukrainian patches on. It could easily be Russian propaganda. It could easily be Western propaganda. There's a lot of people who have a set of particular interest in the way that this conflict turns out. Now, reasonable and rational minds would say, if this war continues between us and Russia, which it is a war between us and Russia, then it doesn't end well for anybody. I mean, that's what rational and reasonable people would say. But there's all kind of interest for it to continue or for it to play out in a particular fashion. So with that being said, we don't really know who this video could potentially be coming from. Let's, assume that it is authentic just for the sake of, a lack of better information. Number one, this proves that there are a lot of jerk-offs out there with guns, and there are a lot of jerk-offs out there that are enlisted in military. And, I get it. I get it. The Ukrainians have a vested interest or a particular cultural viewpoint now about America and probably the MAGA movement, because many of us are uh, very, very opposed, if not definitively opposed, to continuing this war, which would mean us continuing to fund Ukraine more than we fund America and the problems that we have here. We don't want to play empire. We're not European. We are not beholden to the NATO alliance before American citizens. All of that is very logical and rational as well. So I could see where some Ukrainian soldiers would harbor some resent against us. The thing that strikes me as daunting that they would actually, and again, here in our own country, we have no shortage of people who prove just how stupid the culture can get at the low end and the things they're willing to videotape themselves doing, or let's say the things they're willing to do when they could potentially be on videotape. So it's not like it's that shocking, but again, for you to first of all, you're what appears to be in the middle of a deserted place. Where'd you get a mannequin? Okay, then number one, you dressed a mannequin up. You put a makeshift MAGA outfit on a mannequin, and you shoot the thing, and then you set it on fire. And it's just, yeah, I don't know, man. I look at that and go, man, they gave these people guns. They gave these, and it's again, I'm as big a Second Amendment as it gets. So some of these type of people are going to have guns, and even whole nations are going to have guns. And right now, it would seem Ukraine has a lot of guns that came from us, and this is what ends up happening. I mean, and maybe it's not actually Ukrainian soldiers. I'm not saying that I can verify that, but if it is, this is where your money's going, folks. If it is, in theory, this is where your money's going. Sort of weird psychopathic mentality where we're gonna line up MAGA citizens and shoot them, set them on fire. I don't even really understand that impulse. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm not a weird, sick individual, but my worst enemies. Even if I thought politically, figuratively, theoretically, my worst enemies. I'm talking about hardline CCP, tyrannical communists. My worst enemies, I wouldn't tie up to a stake, shoot, and burn. Just unnecessary. It's unnecessarily cruel and kind of inhumane. And even in a war, there is still some sacred honor that you have to keep intact, or you lose a piece of your own soul. And doing things like that. And America's been involved in wars and done things like that as well. Obviously, that's what happens when your empire starts to stretch too thin. You start doing things that you shouldn't be doing. So I'm not saying that we're innocent, but that's where your money's going, folks. And it's just a weird thing to do. It's a weird thing to videotape. It really is. But again, all you got to do is take a look at Zelensky and some of these other Ukrainian soldiers and listen to their, the way that they talk and watch their mannerisms. And you can tell that they're weird. They're weird. I don't want to be associated with them. I don't want to be tied to them. I don't want us to send our tax money to them. There's something weird going on there in Ukraine. I'm sorry. You could say, hey, well, Royce, you don't understand Ukrainian culture. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't. And I don't really give a shit. Fuck the Ukraine. That's what I'm saying. I don't really, it's Russia too. I mean, I don't have a special place in my heart for Russia. Although there are some very profound Russian writers. I mean, War and Peace is probably the greatest literary work of all time. And Dostoevsky and there are a lot of great Russian writers who I have huge respect for. And I kind of do just respect the fact that, again, Russia has preserved a sense of national identity and culture and heritage that has them as a single country able to hold off the entirety of Western civilization when it appears that all of Western civilization is lined up against them. You got to respect that at least. I mean, even your worst enemy, you got to say, man, tip my hat. They got something going there in Russia that's formidable. And that video that we didn't get, Tanner, we're going to have to show the ICBMs hitting, those hypersonic ICBMs hitting at some point in the episode, because that's another horrifying video. But that's a weird thing to do, and not to mention there's some video surfacing of Zelensky in his reality TV show world, or, Dancing with the Stars Ukraine or whatever he was doing. I mean, just the whole Ukraine theater is strange, guys. It's weird. It's really weird.
The thing I think is most important to remember is the people who said that he was a Hitler lover weren't Democrats. They were Republicans. People who said that he was a fascist weren't Democrats. They were Republicans who worked for him. And so it's not just these elite Democrats over here, poisoning the well. You had a pretty broad consensus from the from Chomsky to the Cheneys, that was very, very concerned and remains concerned. And so I think it's not just on us to stop calling names. I think it's up to him to, as Allison said, with deeds show that he's not going to be those things.
Well, yeah, and there it is. I mean, that's why I showed the Grabian clip earlier from them saying that he was going to be Hitler-esque in a Führer, and there you have Van Jones, Democrat establishment extraordinaire, saying a very similar thing in the affirmative, saying, "Hey, these were Republicans that called him Hitler. These were Republicans that said that he was going to be a tyrant and overstep his reach, his authority." Again, it's just give me a break. Give me a break. Anytime the Democrats go to using the Republicans that they let come on their program to bash Donald Trump or the MAGA movement, it's comical. It's just theater, guys. We all see it. We need to continue to watch it. And it's not about Donald Trump anymore. The Donald Trump, the anger and animosity towards Donald Trump is going to ratchet up here, especially on the brink of his inauguration and the start of his second term. There's no doubt about that. But it will start to fade, and you will start to see it morph and change and shift into an animosity toward the MAGA movement itself, and even more importantly, the ideas themselves. That's what you'll see start to happen. And, Van Jones, give me a break. The guy who was crying on the night that Donald Trump won the election, all these people are going to be hurt and in danger, and you're afraid for all this. Just give me a break. Stop. Van, good and well that the Democrat establishment has long become a sort of limousine liberal political movement and machine. And they forgot about the small guy. They forgot about the working class. They let the neocons run them into this globalist empire pipe dream. And now they're way out over their skis. And it's going to be hard to reel back in. It's going to be hard because despite the control and power that you all have over the mainstream media, people can see the result. You don't have to have, and this is what made it so interesting. The attack or the narrative was all about people who weren't college educated, as if to say, you people just aren't smart enough to understand the politics. No, it's not that. It doesn't take a college education to understand when we watch Ukrainian soldiers, who are using our weapons and our money, shoot, kind of fake mannequins of still American citizens, that something doesn't seem quite right. It doesn't take a 4-year degree from a state university or some Ivy League school to understand that. It doesn't take a PhD. It doesn't take some incredible academic accreditation to see what we've become as a country. And that's why you're starting to see a sort of populist movement merge from both the right and the left. We're going to play a video here in a moment of Anna Kasparian saying exactly that, there couldn't be presumably a bigger gap between two political factions in America than the sort of young Turk, progressive, far left-leaning, populists, let's call them, for lack of a better term, to be polite, and what they call the far right-wing MAGA movement. There couldn't be a bigger gap. And I'm not saying there's a natural, alliance between the two of us, but what I am saying is we can all see what America has become. The question is, what's the answer? What's the solution going to be? And the solution can, under no circumstances, be, we're going to get a bunch of these establishment, mainstream, mealy-mouthed, college-educated people in the middle to agree that Donald Trump just isn't the guy. It's like, well, who is the guy? We saw the guy that you wanted. We saw who you guys were good with. It's Kamala Harris or Nikki Haley. And it's just like, give me a break. Not going to happen. No time, never. Not anytime soon are the American people as stupid as you think we are. Are we going to fall for that type of political puppetry? Not going to happen. We'll take Trump. We'll take Trump and all of his flaws before we'll ever see the rise of a Nikki Haley or Kamala Harris. And that has nothing to do with them being women, might I add. Because we would gladly take a Tulsi Gabbard before we would ever take a Nikki Haley or a Kamala Harris. We would gladly take a Carrie Lake before we would ever take a Kamala Harris or a Nikki Haley. And there's a longer list than that. I mean, there are so many people, women even, that we would gladly accept before the women that you tried to put up. Has nothing to do with gender or sex. It has to do with the type of people they are and what they believe in. So Van Jones, you can go fuck yourself, buddy. Yeah. And all you other, MAGA is the dawn of the Fourth Reich. Give me a break. No, it's not that extreme. Yes, we want to give jobs and wages and rights, fundamental rights and freedoms back to your average American citizen. And we would like our governance to remain in the hands of people who were genuinely elected by we the people. Very straightforward, very constitutional, very kind of ones and twos. Not complex, not much deeper than that. Now, are there some people in there that have some more sinister agendas? Of course. And Satan is going to kind of weave his way into whatever grabs power. He's going to be working his way trying to get in there. But we're not that extreme, guys. And the visa issue is a great example. I mean, I don't mean to tie the visas into it, but it's a great example. It's like, no, actually, there are plenty of American workers who have the aptitude, who have the skill, and who can be taught to do these jobs that these visas have to, exist for. No, you guys are trying to find a workaround to get cheap labor in the tech industry. You think technology transcends and supersedes all. And that is a thing, an idea shared on both the Democrat and Republican side. It is a fixture of the globalist mentality. We're not having it. Okay. And it's not a partisan issue. It's a nonpartisan issue. Technology will not be the death of American citizenship, and neither will political theater like you just saw with Van Jones. Donald Trump isn't the Fuhrer, okay? He's just a guy who had enough backbone and balls to say, you people are full of shit, and I think I could do better. Hat off to him. Now, what you're looking at there was about 24 hypersonic ICBMs launched by Russia into Ukraine, Dnipro. And that video, should horrify all of us going into the new year because, hopefully Donald Trump being elected will bring a lot of this international conflict to a screeching halt. But what we have to understand as American citizens is we let our government get too big, too powerful. We've let our government act without much oversight for so long. There are programs out there. There are people out there working their own angles that are somewhat beyond Donald Trump's reach. And it's going to take him some time, even fully staffed with the people that he wants in various agencies, departments. It's going to take some time for them to rein this in. And during that time, we could certainly instigate or continue to instigate an escalation in this war. And, I know everybody here in the West and certainly in America, especially in the boomer generation, I know everybody loves this kind of Pax Americana. We're the biggest badass in the, in the history of human civilization mantra. And in many ways we are, right? There's no denying that America has achieved a certain greatness and singularity in terms of our military prowess. Of course, I get it, and we all have a sense of security and can rest well at night, knowing very, very slim chance somebody wants to attack us right here on our homeland. But with that being said, those hypersonic ICBMs are scary as shit. I mean, did you see the speed? And what's really just straight gangster on behalf of the Russians is they dropped them with no ordnance. I mean, they didn't even blow anything up. They were just duds. They just straight up stunned it on the entire world and said, "This is what we really have." Guys, really, you want to keep playing around? And it does speak to a certain sort of sacred honor again. And I'm not here to fanboy about the Russians, but it does speak to a sort of sacred honor, and even more so, a sense of let's say temperance and restraint that they have those kinds of weapons, that type of technology, and they've held back from using it. I mean, if you look at it from a Russian lens, if you take yourself out of the American, propaganda and viewpoint, and you just try to objectively sit yourself on the Russia side of things as a Russia citizen, you're saying, with everybody lined up against us, why haven't we used these weapons? Why don't we just, go all out? It speaks to a sort of reserve and temperance of the Russian leadership. And again, as an American, I would love to, let's say, sort of reiterate the, the conventional wisdom about Russia's leadership and Vladimir Putin. Ah, he's crazy. He's a tyrant. He's this. He's that. I'll tell you one thing: when you see those hypersonic ICBMs, it whether you like it or not, it speaks to some sort of a reserve and rational thought that Vladimir Putin has and that the Russian leadership has. They don't really want an all-out, complete annihilation, mutually assured destruction that is propagandized here in the West. Because if they did, they would use those. And oh, by the way, it may be that we have similar technology or comparable technology, but we may not. And if we don't, that would mean that our leaders are being radically negligent and incompetent in the way that they're handling this conflict. Because look, they had no way to shoot those missiles down right there. They had no way. They had no way to intercept those hypersonic ICBMs that we saw drop there in Ukraine. So really, Ukraine's a sitting duck. I mean, if Russia really wanted to, they could do to Ukraine what we did there in Gaza. And who showed the restraint and who didn't? And this is where we're losing the long-term narrative. I don't think we see it. I don't think we understand that there's a narrative playing out here over the long haul that we seem to be losing. And maybe some people want us to lose it on purpose. And there are people out there, I think, that want to see the West fall, that want to see the brand of Western civilization and sort of the Westphalian nation state system, or America, for lack of a better term, who want to see the brand of America fold and fall and fail. And maybe those are the people that are hurling us into these quagmires where Russia's the one who has no restraint, yet they have missiles that we don't seem to have, and they're not using them. And then we lay Gaza to waste, and now we want to expand, and we want to go lay more countries to waste. We want to expand the destruction in the Middle East. I mean, what does that say to the rest of the world? What it says to any rational person is, hey, maybe America isn't fit to be the leader anymore. Maybe America's, shot their wad here, and they're not really so rational. Maybe we're not safe under America's rule. And this is what Gaddafi was saying back in 2009, the Security Council, the United Nations Security Council. It's the Insecurity Council. None of us are secure. We all have to bend the knee and do as America says, or as the United Nations or the globalists say, or else they'll come and kill us. And we have to fight that narrative. We have to fight that impulse, not to be soft or weak, but to be smart. So, to take a look at those ICBMs again, take a look at how fast those missiles are coming. Understand that so far as the public knows, we have no way to intercept those missiles. We have no way to stop that type of attack. And if we go too far, there will be mutually assured destruction. So hopefully cooler heads will prevail.
Donald Trump is the middle finger manifested in human form. And I think that the individuals who support him, they might support him for other reasons as well. But I do think that one of the dominant reasons is that it's giving a middle finger to our political establishment, to our institutions. And a lot of Americans feel like those institutions and the political establishment has let them down, whether we're talking about the Democratic establishment or the Republican establishment.
Absolutely right. There, Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks network is commenting, or was commenting, on Stephen A. Smith's video explaining why black men are attracted to Trump. And as a matter of fact, I'm probably going to show that video here in a moment next, just to give you some context, because I think it's important. But she was reacting to Stephen A. Smith basically making the case for black men and why they are trending towards Donald Trump or the Republican Party or the MAGA movement or the nationalist populist movement. And I think she said it right. And again, we're not sycophants. We're not. At least we should strive not to be. I'm not. I'm going to call the balls and strikes the way they are objectively. I don't really have a side. I mean, we know I'm on the side of the American people. I'm on the side of sovereignty and freedom and God granted inalienable rights. I'm on the side of our Constitution. I'm on the side of American citizens being put first in this sense of national honor and sacred honor. I'm on that side, no doubt. I'm on the side with God for sure. But even people on my side, I'm going to say, that's not right. No, you got that wrong. And you're on the other side, you got that wrong. I'm comfortable calling those balls and strikes. So it doesn't bother me to say that Anna, despite what I would disagree with her on almost 99% of the time, this time she's got it right. Donald Trump is the manifestation of a middle finger to an establishment that your average American citizen is starting to realize has been screwing them over for a very long time. And, again, we may all disagree or agree with Donald Trump on a number of issues. There are a number of issues, and we all may have some agreement or disagreement with Donald Trump on a number of issues. Like, for example, I don't agree with Donald Trump's current position on this visa issue. But that will not transcend our disdain for what this establishment has become and how dangerous we kind of intuitively feel the establishment has become. And it has become dangerous. And mostly it's the power. It's the power of the establishment. It's the power of the institutions. And you got self-described Republican centrists like Ana Navarro that affirmed John Thune becoming the Senate Majority Leader on the sole fact that she believes, is an institutionalist. Nothing should scare us more. And that's what Anna's saying. Anna's saying all of these institutions and all of these establishment Republicans and Democrats are equally guilty and screwing over the American people and the little guy. And that is true. Now, there are kind of two fights that are going to break out. There's going to be a fight between establishment Democrats and Republicans, which is all but become theater. And it's not really a fight. It's kind of just a play fight, right? WWE fight. But there is a real fight that's going to happen between the nationalist populace and the socialist populace. And that's what we're trying to, sort out now. And it's going to be a fight about the ideas, and it's going to be a fight based on merit, and it's going to be a fight based on, kind of a spiritual identity and national identity and where this country needs to go. And look, you're going to be hard pressed to tell me that on the far end, that sort of progressive, radical left populist movement is going to beat us, because I think people now see how ridiculous the climate change narrative has gotten. I think people now see how weaponized the race narrative has gotten. I think people now see how we are the world. We need to be, sending our money for mosquito nets in Africa or drone or missile defense systems in Ukraine or wherever else in the world. I think your average American citizen is just kind of rejecting that on face value. So we're going to continue to win. And even Anna's kind of coming around in her own sense. Now, if we got down to the weeds on some more issues, you'd see the obvious difference in worldview and the disagreement. But things are trending towards a similar place here in American political culture. And I think it's a good thing. I'm excited about it. It was great to see that clip from Anna. Because there are some moments where Anna and the Young Turks have said things about me, about Bannon, about Trump, about MAGA, about all kinds of things that, set your skin on fire. Because, like, really? I mean, kind of in the same, the fewer, he's going to be Hitler. So now it's kind of like, nah, Donald Trump's a big middle finger to the establishment. So now we agree there's an establishment. We agree it's corrupt. We agree Donald Trump, at least as the player on the field, was the best representation of a sort of rejection of that establishment status quo. Now, where do we go from here? I like where things are headed. I have to say.
But there's a whole bunch of candidates, and you were waiting for them to answer questions. Think about what they're saying about Kamala Harris to this very day, at this particular moment in time. They're saying there was a lot of questions that she wasn't answering. That her answers weren't in depth enough about the economy. No responsibility embraced because of what happened at the borders with immigration. A flip-flopping position on the issue of fracking. You know, they kept playing her commercial when she said weeks ago, capitulating to the extreme left, that she would be for transgenders getting sex change operations even if they were in prison. And I sincerely doubt she meant that, but it didn't matter. In the end, here's the bottom line, what I've learned just by listening to everybody over the last few days. Yes, they're going to talk about the economy. It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy, stupid. It's the economy, stupid. Sure, they're going to talk about our borders. Over 11.6 million people crossing the border illegally. Sure, they're going to question all of those things, crimes in the streets and stuff like that. All of a sudden, we see New York Mayor Eric Adams talking about they're going to do away, rather, with those prepaid credit cards they were willing to give to folks who cross the border. We're hearing all of this right now. This is what my opinion is. Don't tell me that the extreme left, with the cancer culture, with people getting in trouble for saying the wrong pronoun, with men transitioning to women, playing in women's sports, had nothing to do with it. In the end, you had tens of millions of Americans saying enough of this shit. Donald Trump might be crazy in their eyes, but at least his crazy returns us to a level of normalcy we're accustomed to, rather than the stuff we're dealing with right now. That's what some of them are saying.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of them are saying.
Yeah.
And now as everybody complains about Kamala Harris and her campaign of advisors who clearly gave awful advice, particularly one individual that went on national TV yesterday saying Biden's last act as president in office should be stepping away to give Kamala Harris the presidency so she would become the first female president in the United States history. And oh, by the way, she wouldn't have to certify Donald Trump in as the president of the United States beforehand. All of this stuff, really? Really? That's what we're doing now? That she can't do that? She's the vice president of the United States and she can't sit there and certify him, the person who beat her fair and square for the election? We got to stop that nonsense. A loss is a loss and you got to stomach it and you got to accept it. You have to do that. It's the right thing to do.
Wow. And, you know, it's funny. I was playing in the Big Three. I don't think it was this past season. It might have been the summer before. I think we played in New York. Yeah, we played in Brooklyn in the Barclays the summer before last. And I ran into Stephen A. Smith at a car rental spot there in New York City, which is crazy. When you're from a Midwest place like Minnesota, like Minneapolis or St. Paul, to see the car rental situation, to see the parking garage, car situation in New York City is just crazy in general. But to rent a car in New York City is just odd. You know, you got these garages, and it was crazy. Anyway, I just happened to run into Stephen A. Smith at a car rental place, and he was cool, he was cordial, and I was as well. It's just crazy how things change. I mean, Stephen A. Smith has always been somebody who I find myself very critical of because he himself has a lot to gain by talking about certain issues, athletes, sports, but, culture as well, because sports and culture and religion have become one and the same for a lot of Americans. He has a lot to gain by talking about those things in a particular way. And whether it was his criticism of Kyrie Irving or other things, in the past, I've definitely been on the other side of Stephen A. Smith on a good number of things. Here again is another example where Stephen A. Smith, of all people, being the voice of reason on the Democrat side. I mean the real voice of reason. Like in that short 3-minute clip, Stephen A. Smith might have been one of the most sane and rational voices of reason throughout the entire mainstream Democrat apparatus. And I count him still on that side because he is on that side. I mean, it's not like he was saying he was supporting Donald Trump or that he liked Donald Trump. What he was doing was objectively taking an axe to the type of campaign that was run and the rhetoric and the norms that had been created by the Democrat Party. And it's why a lot of black men, have left the Democrat Party. It's why a lot of people have left the Democrat Party, not just black men, but a lot of people, a lot of working class people have left the Democrat Party. They find themselves either in the void, politically unsure, on the fence, now identifying as independents or sort of apolitical, even just kind of disaffected with politics altogether, or they've come to the MAGA movement, which, as he so eloquently stated, seems like a return back to a norm that the Democrats were unwilling to even recognize or acknowledge. And it did have to do with the transgenderism, and it did have to do with letting biological men, compete in women's sports after sex changes, and it did have to do with the censorship and the cancel culture, and it did have to do with bringing Cardi B or Meg Thee Stallion up on stage, the first political, the first presidential event of Kamala Harris's campaign. And even in the dying days, even after defeat, even in the final hours of this ridiculous campaign, there's still people around Kamala Harris or involved with the Democrat Party on primetime television, unwilling to concede without some, sort of moral victory around identity politics. And it's just, and Stephen A. Smith, shout out to him for calling it exactly as it is. Enough is enough. You lost. It's time to acknowledge it and get back to the drawing board in a real way. Now, the scary part is I do think that they will eventually have some other people who stand up and be a voice of reason and go, hey, enough is enough. We got to get back to going after power because that's what they really want. And they'll regroup. They'll reorganize around a more sane and palatable, or what they call electable, position, and that's equally as dangerous. Remember, the corruption comes from the center. The normalcy, the creeping normalcy of a corrupt status quo and the centrists that protect it, that's where all the danger comes from. And now what we face going forward is that people who have traditionally been liberal or Democrat or even far left in some instances will recoalesce around a base of MAGA ideas. And the greatest way to do that is to use technology. I'm just saying. Technology is going to be the galvanizing force to regroup, reorganize what had become an extremely ridiculous political ideology and culture, right back there to the middle. And the excuse, the thought process is going to be technology has to move forward. Nothing else matters. We have to all come together around that and sing Kumbaya. But shout out to Stephen A. Smith for calling it out exactly like it is. And, we all know ABC and ESPN is woke. And just like you said, like my guy said there in the beginning, if you don't take any risks, you are nothing. You get nothing, you are nothing. It was a risk for Stephen A. Smith to say what he said. ABC, Walt Disney, that entire company is as woke as it gets. We all know it. It's right there right there in the public. It's right there on the record. This isn't a conspiracy theory. Disney is woke. It doesn't get no more woke than Walt Disney. And as such, it doesn't get no more woke than ABC. Well, ABC, Walt Disney, the parent company, it don't get no more woke than that. So for Stephen A. Smith to step on out there under his own flag, even though he has a lot of money to do it, it's a risk. It's a risk. And anytime somebody takes a risk and says something that's true yet inconvenient, I got to respect that. I got to honor that. So shout out to Stephen A. Smith. And that was a couple of the sound bites that Anna Kasparian was responding to. So shout out to Stephen A. Smith. Maybe I'll go get on Stephen A. Smith's show now. When I saw him out there in New York City, he said that he had saw the podcast. This was 2 summers ago. And there were people there, Stephen A. You remember, I hope you remember, maybe you don't. I'm sure you got a lot going on, but he said that he had seen the podcast and he was listening to it. And, he said much respect. And, maybe I had some small influence as well as a bunch of other people on Stephen A. Smith having the courage. They say courage is contagious. And when you step up and you say some things that are true but inconvenient, it gives other people permission to do the same. I'm not saying that Stephen A. Smith said what he said because he was listening to my podcast. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is me doing the podcast came from other people saying and other people. And this is what truth and courage and sacred honor really is about. And this is how you get to a society that's more anchored in reality, rational thought, and goodness. So shout out to Stephen A. Smith. I hope to connect with him soon here in the future. Seems like a place where, sports and politics can come together on a really big platform, and there can be some really important conversation. Piers Morgan, somebody else who I disagree with. I'm happy that he's letting both sides of this Palestine-Israel conflict play out on his platform, and it's much needed. And no matter what side you take, are there even mainstream places where we can have that dialogue? And hopefully, if nothing else, what comes from Donald Trump's victory is that all of these mainstream media institutions start to view themselves as more of a medium of education and genuine needed dialogue as a public service versus commercial business and political propaganda. That would be a huge win for the American people and for all of human civilization.
You look at this, and that there's some racism over there. You white folks, go look at that. That's a Fox specialty. We don't fall for that. So don't think you're going to come back and, oh, you know what? Well, what we need to do is increase it here and cut that cost there. Screw you, you clown. And then you got to suppress us. Oh, they're, I don't know, blacklisting you, whatever they do. I don't care what they do on Twitter. I could care less. We're banned on every platform in the world, and this show is one of the most powerful in the world. Why is that? Because the content of the show resonates with the most powerful audience in the world, working men and women that happen to be citizens of this great republic. This is a defining moment. Some of the people say, "Oh, Steve, we gotta have a group hug. You can't do this and let the Democrats." No, we're not having group hugs. We're not having pats on the head. You got to get this straight. First off, you got to get. Hey, I've said many times that Elon came and Elon's money helped organize the grassroots effort. In his engineering mind, he saw what the problem was as we saw it, and he supported it. And for that, he gets a place at the table. There's no doubt. You should. It's $250 million in June, not an entire cycle, in 5 months. But that dinner with Sachs and that check from Elon came at Biden's, when Biden, in the debate or right before the debate, and Biden, they kind of saw the numbers of where this thing was heading. They're recent converts, and we love converts. Hell, I'm a Catholic. We used to be in the convert business. Not so much anymore. We can't keep what we got. But in the old days, half the saints are missionaries. We love in converts. But the converts sit in the back and study for years and years and years to make sure you understand the faith and you understand the nuances of the faith and understand how you can internalize the faith. Don't come up and go to the pulpit in your first week here and start lecturing people about the way things are going to be. If you're going to do that, we're going to rip your face off. Because you can't beat us. We're not beatable. This army of the awakened is not beatable because we're relentless and we will never surrender and we will never slow down. And yes, if you go low, we'll go to the center of the earth. Because we're fighting for something that means something. We have meaning in this. This is why people watch the show. This is why people come to this show and all this great content people provide us. And Ben Bergquam's down now, putting his life in danger again. Why do people do this? Why have they done this for years? Why did they do it for years at Breitbart? Why did when Trump started appearing in 13 and 14, we said, that's the guy.
The general, Stephen K. Bannon, couldn't have a better friend or mentor. Couldn't ask for a better friend or mentor than Stephen K. Bannon. There it is right there. And that's why, Donald Trump, no doubt, he stood in the breach. He stepped up at a time where somebody as wealthy as he is, somebody as successful as he's been, somebody as comfortable, relatively speaking, comfortable as he is at this time in his life, didn't have to do what he did. Again, he took a risk. And taking a risk that big helped save this country. But make no mistake about it, Stephen K. Bannon is the intellectual thought leader of this movement, and not only here in this country, but all around the world. And you just saw why. There's a reason why. Because he's willing to say the thing that's inconvenient. And right now, again, the most convenient thing to do would be, hey, let's all join hands, come together, sing kumbaya under whatever auspice, is necessary for us to feel good about ourselves. And we'll let the Democrats join in, and now they can be MAGA too, and nothing actually gets changed or solved. Not how we roll. It's not how we roll. Doesn't do anything. It cancels out the risk that we took to get here. It cancels out the risk that Donald Trump took to win. We undo the progress that we've made. We undo, how far we've come if we let it be some superficial kumbaya. And that has been a recurring theme and plague of the status quo. It's how the status quo moves itself forward. It's not about Republicans or Democrats. It's about how the system and our culture comes together under the guise of convenience, a much easier way, an easier path, less confrontational. The less confrontational, the better. And here in Minnesota, they call it Minnesota nice. And then you get this passive aggressiveness that boils up and boils over and explodes later on in a much, much more severe fashion. And this is about the way that we as human beings organize and move ourselves forward, even under a dishonest, a dishonest set of beliefs or agreements. And we can't afford it anymore. There are no easy answers now. There are no easy answers. We've let it go too far. All the answers are tough. And the tough answers, yeah, we do like converts. I'm a Catholic as well. We like converts. I love Steve says, we used to be in the convert business, not so much anymore. Hard to keep a hold of what we got. And, even that, even being a Catholic and being able to bring that fair, objective criticism to the Catholic Church and to the Catholic faith itself shows us a sense of sacred honor that Steve has, which is why him being the intellectual thought leader and sort of titular, backbone, the war room being the titular backbone of this movement is based on merit. It's not just the merit of his intelligence. It's on the merit of his honor, of his integrity. And I echo the same thing. Yeah, we love what Elon Musk, contributed. We needed it. But it's not Elon Musk that did it. It's God that did it, hopefully. And hopefully Elon Musk understands that. It's the set of circumstances that the universe, ordained by God, presented at that moment for Elon Musk to have the realization, whether it was selfish or unselfish, that this is the way things were headed and this is what needs to happen. And in his position, just like some of these Democrats and Anna Kasparian and Stephen A. Smith or whoever else, his position isn't a fixed position any more than their position is a fixed position, any more than mine or Steve's is, or Donald Trump for that matter. Our position isn't fixed. Until our dying breath, we will be in a battle of the flesh. We will be in a battle between good and evil, and we'll get to make those choices. And hopefully we choose right. So Elon Musk, the victory isn't won. We won a small battle and an ongoing war, a war that will never end. Stephen K. Bannon throwing down right there. Good old-fashioned smash mouth nationalist populism in the war room. And if you're not tuned into the war room, you need to. And again, like he said, war room, not on YouTube, not on X. Steve Bannon's been banned off X. They didn't restore him to X. They didn't bring him back to X. I didn't even think he wanted to be, because the things that he says are so true, so powerful. They pack such a punch. They're so impactful. They're so grounded in history that everybody's going to share it anyway. You can ban us all you want to. You can ban me all you want to. The human spirit, it longs for truth and it longs for freedom.
We're going to keep working together. We're going to be okay. I love you. We are going to be okay. We're going to keep showing up. We're going to keep working together. We're going to be okay. I love you. We are going to be okay.
Well, yeah, you certainly are going to be okay. I don't necessarily understand. that this was post-Trump winning, and there was this viral slew of videos of people melting down and freaking out, and obviously they think the world is going to come to an end. They really don't have a good grasp of American politics if they think that it's going to be a huge fight for things to change even a little bit. And part of that entire political worldview is that the slightest change is much bigger than it is. And this is how effectively radical left movements, progressive movements like the LGBTQ and radical feminist movement have become a safeguard or vanguard for the status quo, as to where they pretend like very small changes are big changes when they're really just small changes. Some things are going to change. It's going to be relatively small. Do they have sizable impact? That's to be debated. But ultimately, things aren't going to be much different than they were. And it's going to be a knockdown, drag out, nail, clawing fight in order for us to get real radical change to what we've created, to the corruption that we've created. So yeah, you know what? You are going to be okay. But if being okay means that everybody has to accept that on Monday you're Jonathan and on Tuesday you're now Jane, and we all have to accept that as reality. If that's your standard of what okay is, then you know what? You're not going to be okay. Because I tell you one thing, that's for sure. This ship is turning a different direction in that regard. We are almost all but completely done with the LGBTQ and transgender craze, and I'm happy about it. Again, like I've said before, it's nothing against the LGBTQ community in general. It's nothing against gays and lesbians. I grew up here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's one of the gay capitals of the country. And my mom was in the beauty business. I mean, she's an esthetician, for Christ's sakes. The salon that she worked at growing up is plenty of men that did hair that were homosexual. There are plenty of men that did nails. There are plenty of men that worked in the salon that were gay. I grew up around them. We didn't judge them. Didn't really know what gay meant, I guess, when you're a kid growing up. But they talked feminine. We didn't judge them. Spoke to them. Hello, hi, how you doing? They're regular people. Treated them like they're regular people. There weren't, bands of roving, raging, pillaging bigots that were rolling into, that were running into my mom's salon and dragging homosexuals out and beating them in the street. I mean, that's not a reality. So it's nothing against, but what has become of the LGBTQ movement is to try and normalize it for kids against the will of their parents, and in some cases against the will or the better knowledge of the kid themselves. Because children at a young age are very impressionable. They're very easy to influence. And this is why we've always placed an emphasis on protecting our children and their minds, because they are easy to mold. And when adults, especially in a sexual sense, when adults prey on young people's minds and try and mold their minds or their ideology in a certain way, especially sexually, it's seen as predatory, and rightfully so. So yeah, if being okay means that the norm continues where I don't know, woke elementary school teachers that come from the universities get to tell some 7-year-old girl that because she feels alienated in her body, that it makes sense for her to become a boy or start to become a boy. And what is that even? That's ridiculous. No, we're not doing that. Sorry. If that's your standard, then you might not be okay. If you're talking about a standard where you get to dress up as a woman, with a mustache and in a full length, knit cardigan, and say that your pronouns are, Z, Zim, fine. Go ahead. You'll be okay. I just don't have to accept it. And we as the American people don't have to accept it as a norm, especially on the brink of a world war or nuclear war with countries that have banned it because it's not anchored in reality. And one thing about war is anchored in reality. So you're right. You will be okay.
It's personal now. I'm coming for every single straight man in my family. Hi. Y'all fucked around and found out. And now this is going to happen. You're welcome. So I am absolutely, now I'm sure, now I'm positive that the yearly hunting trip that y'all have been having, that my father hosts, that my uncle goes on, that my uncles, my brother, my cousins that are like my brothers, their friends that have all known me my entire life, that claim to love and respect me, have been having a yearly, claim to love and respect women in general, but obviously that's bullshit, yearly hunting trip that they go on that falls the weekend after my parents' anniversary. Weird. Almost like it was my dad's planned bachelor party, and then y'all just never fucking stopped the bachelor party, because isn't the quote, the theme of that weekend that y'all always tell, y'all been telling us for decades, for what, 30 something years y'all been doing this trip, right? It's like Vegas. We don't, you can't talk about it. It's like Fight Club. You're not supposed to talk about it. I always thought that was really sus, you know? And then my now ex-husband, the first and last time he ever went on that trip with y'all, he tried to cheat on me, and I found out about it. I'm not sure if y'all know that. Y'all invited the one who's gonna get y'all fucked up.
I mean, I think we've seen a lot of videos and content today, and I don't mean to pick out what appears to be, a liberal white woman here in the conclusion of this first reaction episode, but come on, I mean, it's it's almost poetic. I mean, Tanner, did we do that on purpose? Did we play that video last on purpose? Not, we had no set list of how we wanted to play these videos. It's just kind of a natural progression. But honestly, I mean, let's address the video first. One, your now ex-husband who went on the trip and was, allegedly tried to cheat on you. The reason that he tried to cheat on you had nothing to do with the hunting trip. The reason he tried to cheat on you is because you are insufferable. Okay. It makes complete sense that he would try and cheat on you based on what you just displayed in the video. I mean, what you displayed in the video is so irritating. Theoretically, I want to cheat on you. I want your ex-husband to have cheated on you multiple times, just for his own for his own well-being. I pray, and I hate to say that. I mean, that's sort of sacrilege. Seriously, that's a joke. But honestly, yeah, no, he cheated on you, and he's been cheating on you because you're insufferable. And there is a difference between a man cheating on a woman who is loving, understanding, supportive, kind of understands the feminine role of being a helpmate and not being so naggy and high strung and sort of manic in her disposition. There is a significant difference in cheating on a woman like that, infidelity on a woman like that, and a woman like this. Oh, and see, this is one of the things that the radical feminist movement has done. It's kind of created a sort of a false equivalency across the entire species of women. Like all women are equal. No, all women aren't equal. This woman is a nightmare. And this I don't know what this even was. This was like a sort of outing, exposed video of the men in her own family because her ex-husband or I don't even know what this was. But what it shows is that we as men, the failure of masculinity has caused a crisis of in femininity, and we have led. And we got to take some blame here. We have led women so far astray. This is going to be one of the things that we have to rein in, and it's probably going to take this battle. This war is probably going to be the longest war that we have to fight, but it is one we're going to have to fight. And you could say it's the oldest war that we've fought, since Genesis, since the garden, since Adam and Eve. This is kind of reflective of that same parable, that same archetype and narrative. But this woman's batshit crazy. She's crazy. She's losing it. And, this impulse, and even it's even strange to me, this impulse for people to run to the internet about their personal problems and their family's personal problems as if there's anything honorable or reasonable about who are you doing this video for? I mean, it'd be one thing if let's say we have a close-knit family, immediate family, extended family, and, we do a lot of family holidays and get-togethers, and, I find something out that my ex-husband tried to cheat on me, and he went to this hunting trip, and now I think that it's a sort of good old boys trip where the husbands, play hard, party hard, they cut up a little bit or a lot of bit or whatever the case may be. Don't know what kind of weird kinky stuff these dudes are into on these hunting trips. But let's say that that's the case. And now I'm upset, I'm irate, I'm hurt, I'm angry, and I want to make a video that circulates around the family. Okay, that's cool, but why are you posting it to the internet for everybody to see? And does it ever cross your mind that maybe there are some people that are innocent in the whole deal? That you run the risk of hurting or causing undue stress or problems? That never even dawns on people anymore. I mean, that's how self-absorbed and sort of narcissistic we've become as a culture. And I say that because this internet culture and this social media culture and this culture of exposing somebody or whatever the case may be is certainly bent or tilted towards the impulse for people to crave attention. Attention is the greatest currency in our society. We've made attention the highest form of currency in our society, and that's what would bring a woman to the public square and say something about the people that are closest to her in her life, her family, her loved ones, that didn't even seem like it had much evidence or proof behind it. It was kind of just an opinion, a kind of a superficial, surface type of hunch. And the fact that we're willing to bring these hunches to the table, to the public square like that is a sign of a society that's in bad shape. No sacred honor. I keep saying it. You can't have freedom without self-governance, but you can't have self-governance without sacred honor and national honor. And that is an example of a woman who is so emotional that she has lost all sense of sacred honor. Now, you can call me a misogynist. You can say I'm sexist. You can say that I hate women. You can say, oh, Royce said women have gotten too mouthy. Guess what? There are a lot of women in my life I really like. There's some I like a lot less. And there are some that I just can't stand to listen to. But there are some that I would completely stand shoulder to shoulder with in this nation's darkest hour. And there's a long list of them, a list so long I won't do it here. But there are a lot of them. However, this woman is mouthy. This woman is a prime example of women who have just gotten mouthy. And there are a lot of men who have followed suit. And there are a lot of men that were raised or influenced by a radical feminist political culture who mimic it and who act just as mouthy as women do. So, I mean, if you need, if any of you liberals or progressives or Democrats out there, especially here in Minnesota, I'm running against Tina Smith. It's a classic man versus woman political candidate face-off. And I'm sure they're going to go back to the same exact, bag of insults or criticisms. Oh, Royce is a misogynist. He's sexist. He calls women mouthy. Refer back to this clip. Refer back to and we're going to show a lot of them, because in this narcissistic feminist culture, I think that women have actually convinced themselves by and large part that they're beyond reproach. They're beyond criticism, or the only people who can criticize women are other women, right? If it's like we're around the campfire and girl, that was crazy and you shouldn't be doing that, then it's okay. But anytime a man steps up to say, you women got to rein it in. You women got to get it together. Then all of a sudden he's sexist. Okay, fine. Spend all day criticizing other men. No problem with that. It's a double standard. We have a double standard culture between men and women. And we have to, and again, it's what Stephen A was saying. He didn't say it. He said it without saying it. He didn't say it, but that's part of what he was saying there as well. Is we all got caught up on this hype train that Kamala Harris should win just because she's a woman. Doesn't matter what she thinks, doesn't matter her position on policies, doesn't matter what she's done in the past. None of that matters. She's a woman and therefore she should win. And even in the final days before Donald Trump is inaugurated, you still have Democrat operatives trying to figure out ways to satisfy identity politics. She lost. She lost because she's a goofball. She's a clown. She's not the only one. There's a bunch of Republican women that are clowns too. There's a bunch of people that are clowns, men, women alike. But we're not going to hold back any punches based on who you are, what color you are, what age you are, what your pronouns are. We're not holding back any punches anymore. We're going to tell it exactly as it is. Smash mouth populism. This woman right here was batshit crazy. She had that manic look in her eyes, and your husband cheated on you because you're insufferable. I'm sorry to be the one to break it to you. Hopefully, your marriage counselor or your therapist are going to tell you here in the next 2 to 3 years when you're sitting on their couch, your husband cheated because you're a nightmare. And hopefully you can reconcile that, or hopefully you can get yourself together so your next relationship doesn't meet the same fate. But you are a nightmare. And I'll tell you this, a lot of you women out there, you don't realize how much of a nightmare you really are. Men are kind of simple creatures. Don't get me wrong. There are some cruel, disgusting, despicable men out there. They come home from work and, they fly off the handle because the food's cold. There are some men like that out there. Don't get me wrong. There's some animals out there. There are some degenerate, psychopathic animals, people like Noah Yuval Harari. God knows what he's doing to whoever his love interest is, man or woman behind the scenes. Actually, I think he's homosexual. So that relationship's probably sure to be suffering from some weird domestic violence, because I don't say that to be bigoted. I'm just saying that lesbian relationships tend to have more domestic violence than any other relationships. But there are some animals out there. But your average man, your average everyman, they go to work, they come home, they want to be supported and loved and admired. They want to be appreciated. They want to create the most security that they can for their loved ones. If they have the good fortune to have children, they want to be able to protect their children. And they do the best that they can to be fathers and kind of take that role, that heavy burden of being in charge of providing for everybody in the household. Men are quite simple on average. Men are pretty simple. You know, we want to be fed, we want to have sex. We want to be able to go to work and not be stressed out, and that's pretty much it. I mean, Tanner, am I right? Tanner's in the studio. He's a young man himself. Is it Tanner? Is that the gist of it? I mean, your average man. I'm not saying there aren't some degenerate, gambling, psychopathic, drunk monsters out there, because there are. But your every man is pretty simple. I'm sorry to tell you, women, what your leaders have done, your intellectual thought leaders and the feminist zeitgeist, they have made women's average thought process not simple at all. And hopefully over the next year, we'll be able to tackle that, because I'm sure it's going to come up in my campaign.
Is that her?
Hey, Brittany. Yeah. I need you to come out here. No, not 1 second. I need you to come out here.
Hey guys, can I call y'all right back in just a second? I've got somebody at the door here. Yes, ma'am.
Is there somebody else here with the kids besides your grandpa?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
What? Huh? What? No, there's nobody here but Pop.
Okay. Turn around for me.
Why?
Because you're under arrest.
For what?
For the incident we talked about earlier today.
What am I under arrest for?
For reckless endangerment.
And how was I recklessly endangering my child?
We're not talking about it.
So I'm going to call Mommy and tell them they're taking you to jail because you decided to walk down the street.
Let go of your hands.
That's not his fault.
Yeah, call Mommy.
You're the mother. That's your responsibility to
Yeah,
keep
I
up
need
with your
you
child.
to not talk to me, please.
Last
time I checked, it wasn't illegal for a kid to walk to the store. So.
It is when they're 10 years old.
It is?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to see that on the books.
Okay, well, you'll see it on your warrant.
Great.
I need somebody here to stay with the kids.
I don't have anybody.
Do you want to take this watch off? Or you want to take it with you?
Well, then I'm calling DFAX.
Soren, come here. Hey, come here, let me talk to her. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
The police are here and they're taking me to jail. So I need you to come stay with the kids.
They're not taking them in 40 days.
No, I'm not kidding. It's ridiculous.
Okay. This is the overreach of government right here. I mean, this is what your classic MAGA hardliners, patriots, more libertarian people are going to call foul and say the government has absolutely no business doing things like this. And I would totally agree. Now, in all fairness, I'm going to be honest. With where society is today and the problem that we have with human trafficking and child abduction and all of those kinds of things, scary things that are happening in our society right now, which has to do with a lot of other factors like education and the lack of law enforcement in general, or illegal immigrants who we can't keep track of, who come from places where child trafficking is a big business. All these things are factors, but in general, I wouldn't really feel comfortable sending my 10-year-old to the store on their own, to walk to the store on their own myself. In fact, I would never let my 10-year-old child walk to the store on their own in today's climate. However, the question is, does the government or police have the right to apprehend or punish, penalize, incarcerate, detain an American citizen for choosing something else? Absolutely not. This is completely wrong. This is an oversight and overreach of government. These cops should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. They should be fired. They should be fired. Okay. And if there was somebody else higher up in the force that okayed and greenlit this arrest, they should be fired. If this mom wants to let her 10-year-old walk to the store to get bread, candy, milk, a toy, that's her prerogative. And if her kid comes up missing, then she has to deal with the guilt and sort of, the regret for the rest of her life for making that decision. But it's totally within her right as a parent to let her kid have as much responsibility as she thinks is needed. Because different children are going to need a different amount of responsibility to develop based on who they are as an individual. And this is the problem with government. They give one blanket sort of criteria and standard and to everyone. It's nothing remotely appropriate about that. You know, maybe this young person needs some more responsibility. Again, it wouldn't be my choice. I wouldn't do it that way. I think there are other ways to give children and teach children responsibility. But hey, we are living in a culture where it would seem young people are increasingly irresponsible. So maybe this mom has it right and we all got it messed up. But again, I mean, the general principle is the government needs to mind its own business. We need to shrink the government. The grandiosity of the federal government's undermining the meaning of community. And there's a prime example. You're going to come and arrest a mother. You're going to come and arrest a mother or a parent or a guardian, or I don't know, she could have been a babysitter or whatever the case may be. You're going to come and arrest somebody. And what they said, what she said was, maybe this 10-year-old decided to walk to the store on their own. Maybe they were outside playing and they just decided to walk on down the street. That happens. Young kids, venture off from in front of the house all the time. It used to be back in the day. I remember my grandparents and my mom and dad telling me about a time back in the 60s and the 70s where, even as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, even younger than that sometimes, you didn't even get to be in the house all day. You went outside and you played and you didn't come home until the streetlights came on and dinner was ready. If you were in the house, people saw that as weird. Your parents would, what are you doing in here? Are you sick or something? You hurt? What's wrong with you? You'd be looked at as kind of strange. That's how much people were outside. So I don't know what went on here, but I think people should look into it. We should. We're gonna look into it some more and find out what's going on and keep you updated on how that situation developed or what happened. But it's just an example of the government. Again, it's the police. The thin blue line. Yeah, we love the cops. We support you, but some of you are assholes. Some of you are stupid. Some of you make dumb decisions, and you're arrogant about it. You got the chick cop there. She's that's not their fault. You're reckless and dangerous. And you got the other cop who says, well, we're not going to talk about it. This is that grandiosity of the government and of law enforcement. Am I a Roman citizen? Am I an American citizen? Do you have the right to bind and beat an American citizen who has not yet seen trial? And this isn't even a serious situation, but this is just an example. You police officers, you cops got to pull your head out of your fucking ass. With all due respect, love you, support you. Let's refund the police, overhaul funding. We need more cops. They need better pay. They need time and a half, and I'm all for all of that. But when you do shit like this, you make a strong case that a lot of you need to be fired. And that's the duality of that conversation. That's that yin and yang that we have to deal with when it comes to police and citizens. Don't be the black hand of a corrupt federal government because you undermine the rule of law. And I don't even know if there is a law that says that a 10-year-old can't walk to a store on their own. We're going to shrink the federal government. That has to be a priority of this movement. And by way of stupid incidents like that where cops are overstepping their bounds way, way too much.
Add the H back in. Nope, counter.
He's out of it. Big throat thrust by Cocaine. He's reaching for something. He's reaching for something.
Cocaine has...
He's got a baggie. It's an 8-ball. He's got an 8-ball. And Cocaine goes fucking crazy.
Cocaine is fired up, brother! Coke slam to the depths of hell!
I'm sorry. You guys are gonna see the real Royce in some of these reaction videos because I can get a bit goofy. That's hilarious. And the reason I wanted to show that really that one had nothing to do with the video itself. I kind of thought it'd be it's a good example of American politics. I mean, that's the kind of ridiculous, obnoxious, professional wrestling theater that I see American politics as. We call it WWE politics, but here you had some back barn, backyard style professional, semi-professional wrestling situation going on where they took the brand and the image of Kane, the wrestler, the Hall of Fame professional wrestler Kane, and they created an offshoot, Cocaine, and the special move was for him to bring out an 8-ball of cocaine and do an 8-ball of cocaine and then do a Coke slam. I mean, that's just hilarious. That's actually pretty funny. But that is what American politics has become. I'm sorry. This is the WWE that has now created the circumstance where an Anna Kasparian, a Stephen A. Smith, a Royce White, a Steve Bannon, we're all kind of coming to a similar conclusion. We're getting scammed. What we're watching is obviously a farce. Is obviously a fugazi. A fake. It's fraud. It's not real. As an aside, it is pretty crazy that anybody would come up with a character based on cocaine. I mean, I think that probably says something about how degenerate and decadent the drug culture has become in this country. Not even hiding it. It's so normal now for people to be hopped up on drugs and powder and pills or whatever else floats their boat. We can have a semi-professional wrestler whose whole identity is based on cocaine. And, what I don't think there's a better way to end. Happy New Year. Hopefully 2025 is much better than 2024. Hopefully 2025 and Donald Trump's next term will be the start of the revitalization and renaissance of this country back to a very strong constitutional republic that has a bedrock of culture and philosophy and faith and spirit and education and innovation at the helm. And hopefully we can start to move this country in a direction that we can all be proud of, that our children can be proud of, that future generations can be proud of. Because, through the course of this show and these reactions, some of this stuff, in this, you can say, oh, well, you can find one off anywhere of some people doing crazy things. And I think Tanner would agree. What social media has done is given us a view into a culture that is widespread. And the question is, how widespread does it need to be for it to be a big problem? And again, I'm not saying that it's every man or every woman or every community or every neighborhood. It certainly isn't. But the reality is there are some, and there are enough to have a disproportionate impact on the rest of society. And that's a tightrope. That's a fine line that we have to walk. It's like having a basketball team. I always bring things back to sports because there's a lot of corollary into the way that communities and societies are organized and the way that teams are organized. If you have one kid on the team, like take a high school team, for example, if you have one kid on the team who's kind of a prima donna or a jokester, or every time we come to a huddle, he's laughing, he's trying to get the other kids to smile and joke, and he's distracted from what the coach is saying or what the team needs to be doing, it can ruin a team. Now, is he the norm? Is he the average? No. But that one person can create a disproportionate negative impact on the rest. Now, does that mean you have to get rid of the kid every single time? No. Part of the sacred honor and taking those risks associated with what we talked about in the beginning is saying, hey, how do I help this kid? Now, usually the way that you do that, usually the way you take a kid who is more aggressive or more defiant of authority and more of a rebel, usually the way that you teach them responsibility is you have to give them the most responsibility out of everybody else in the group. And by having that responsibility, it'll shape them into being more responsible. Hopefully, sometimes you can't get through to a kid, they're a lost cause, and they end up ruining themselves and destroying their own life. That happens too. We can't save everybody. But all in all, we do have to understand a few bad apples can spoil the whole bunch. So what we've done with this culture, what we've done with social media, what we show here on these clips with these reactions, they may be anomalies, but the anomalies matter. The anomalies matter. They matter in culture. They matter in a country. They matter when you're on the brink of war. They matter in politics. They matter. The anomaly matters. And I'm not saying that these are so much of an anomaly. And that's the scary part. They're not the norm. They're not the majority, but they're a sizable enough minority to have America in the shape that it's in now. Welcome to 2025. This has been another episode of Please Call Me Crazy. This is your Wednesday reaction/news episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll have Professor Penn in for the last Please Call Me Crazy Hebrews this Friday. After that, Hebrews will be moving to its own channel where it'll have all of the additional content associated with the Hebrews podcast. If you need to, go to freepeopleradio.com. That'll give you the links to all of the podcast channels and platforms. Visit the store. We got a lot of great merchandise in the store. In the new year, we're going to be releasing more merchandise for the store. This Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern, Real America's Voice, The Royce White Show, right before War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. We appreciate your viewership and listenership today and in the future. We hope you like this format. Like I said earlier, a Sunday show with call-ins will be coming in the very near future. We're trying to get those details together and the tech necessary to make that smooth. And when we do, hopefully all you have been loyal fans of the show will be some of our first call-in guests and make for some good conversation in the earliest parts of that Sunday show. So Happy New Year to everybody again. I hope you enjoyed the family. And we say some things that are dark and deep and have a negative tone, but it's really not negative. To even get these things on the table is the positive, and we like having these conversations. We want you to like and embrace having them too. See it as a sign of optimism. At least if the truth is on the table, we can move in the right direction. That's it for me. The fight continues. The people are coming. As always, Godspeed. Everything's up on the bar. We're all in. We get to decide. Do you want to live on your knees or do you want to die on your feet fighting? That's the decision you get to make now.